Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, no matter where you're at when you clicked on this video. Thank you for joining me today. So in today's video, I wanted to talk about some new functionality that just got released for CloudFormation and how it relates to the CDK. CloudFormation just released some new functionality that allows you to actually take resources that were created through ClickOps or some other process and import them into CloudFormation. Now, this is a really cool feature that's been kind of a long time coming. We've been asking for it for quite a while, and they finally delivered on it. So I'm going to guide you through how it works, and then we're going to talk about it in regards to the CDK, how the CDK Migrate functionality works with it, and then we're going to discuss a little bit about the L1, L2 problem that comes up with the CDK. So let's get right into it. All right, so we're going to start off here by going into CloudFormation, and you're going to see this new IaC generator option here on the left. So we click on that, and we see this nice little panel. And it's going to go ahead and give us sort of some getting started here. We're going to scan first, and then we can create a CloudFormation template, and then we can either import that into CloudFormation or we can create a CDK app. I'm going to go ahead and just minimize that for now. Now, I already ran a scan before on this account yesterday, but I'm going to go ahead and start a new scan here. Now, this is going to take a little time, so you can go run off, get yourself a cup of coffee or tea or whatever you like, and you're going to come back after a couple of minutes. Now, I always found it sort of interesting that this information wasn't already available to AWS. I mean, AWS knows what you have in your account, so I'm sort of curious to know what this is doing behind the scenes during this scan, if there's actually anything extra happening here. Sure, it's probably going out and reading specific parameters, but I just sort of assumed that it already knew what was in your account, but it doesn't. So we're going to just give this a couple minutes to run through. All right, so all done. This account's pretty small, so it only took a couple minutes to do. Once the scan is complete, you'll be able to now try to create a template for some of these resources. So scroll down and hit create template, and we're going to go ahead and start with a new template. Now, I happen to know that there's an API gateway in this account that I want to bring into CloudFormation code because I had originally just ClickOpsed it. So that was called the image API. So that's what I'm going to call this template name, just image API. And I'm going to leave the deletion policy at retain and update policy at retain, just kind of convenient. Of course, this already exists. So we'll just go ahead and call it image API 2. Now at this point, I need to pick out the resources that I want to bring into this template. So I'm just going to go ahead and take a look here. These are all my API gateway deployments here on the first page. Second page, I start to get into the REST API stuff. So I'll go ahead and just pick out, I happen to know it's this OEHOO API. So I'll go ahead and grab that. I'll grab the stage related to it. And then I'm just going to go ahead and just pick out one of these deployments for the API. And that's it. Notice here, I don't have much more in API Gateway than just stage, the REST API, and a deployment. And we'll talk about this a little bit more later. But with these three selected, I'll go ahead and hit next. It's asking me if I want to grab these other deployments as well, and I don't. I want to keep this a little bit small for now. So I'll next and create template. So now that the template is created and it has gone through and kind of gotten everything updated, I'll just hit refresh real quick on this. So now I have my template definition, resources. There's a button here for this AWS CDK command that I could run as well, but I'm not going to do that quite yet. I'm going to show you a slightly different way I'm going to go about doing this. So back to the template definition, I'm going to go ahead and say import to stack. This is actually going to take this template now and it's going to create a stack from it. So really what it's doing is taking the template I've got and just running the import routine on it. There's no parameters, so that's fine. I'll see the changes here are just going to be some basic import routines here. Next, 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 and we'll go ahead and import. Now, this is kind of an important feature here. If you notice, there's There is more to my image API than just the basic definition of the API. There are some methods and some resources and things like that. But I didn't get the option to bring those things in. And that's kind of important because, and I'm not positive on this. I need to do a little bit more research first, but I want to get this video out while things were kind of hot. It'll only let you generate and import based on what CloudFormation allows you to import. And I don't believe CloudFormation allows you to import things like your resource and your method definitions. And I think that might be why these things are missing. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's what's going on here. But either way, so the stack is creating import process is done, and I got my image API. Great. So I've now taken these resources that I click ops, I brought them into a CloudFormation template and stack. Now at this point, I've got to copy that template. If I was a CloudFormation person, I wasn't using the CDK, I'd pretty much just stop at this point. I've got my template. I would modify it from there however I want to by hand, but I'm a CDK guy. So let's go ahead and take a look at what the next steps would be for the CDK side. All right, so now I'm in WebStorm. I'm in a completely blank directory I just call CDK Migrate. This is going to hold a couple of things, but for now it's just blank. I've already got keys set up for my AWS account so I can access everything that's in there. And the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna go ahead and double check my CDK version. I'm on 2.126.0. This was released on February 2nd, 2024. And this supports all of the CDK import functionality from both scans and from templates or from stacks. Migrate's actually been in there for a while now, but this newest release does include going straight from scanned resources. I'm not going to cover that in this video. This is just a question at this point about what gets generated. So we're going to do a CDK migrate from stack image API, stack name image API. And then language equals TypeScript. Now, behind the scenes, this is just using the standard CDK init functionality, which I haven't really used in a while. This is probably going to be a little bit different to me, but 75% of you are probably still using this. So, get on project. Okay, so this is now created. And if I go take a look here, I have this new image API directory because that was the stack name that I was given, or I gave it. And then in the lib directory, I've got this API image API stack. And I can see here, I've got, let's blow this up a little bit, shrink this all down. So looking at the code that it generated here, these are all using L1 constructs. And this is the important thing to know and understand about the CDK migrate functionality is that it cannot and does not know anything about L2s or L3s. It can't turn these low level resources into higher level abstractions. If you figure out a way to do that, maybe some the new Gen AI stuff with Bedrock or Code Whisperer can accomplish it, but this is not something that is fundamentally easy to do. It's very difficult. So the only thing it can do is generate these L1s. So I'm looking in here and I can see I've got some pretty kind of interesting names and IDs for these resources, but again, just standard L1 constructs. The good thing about this is it means that pretty much any resource that you have in AWS that you can import in through this process through the new IaC generator, you're going to be able to turn it into a CDK code, at least the L1 stuff, just fine. It does not currently work with custom resources, though. That's a known miss in the current migrate functionality. It doesn't understand custom resources or how to do those. But so we got this. I got my REST API. I've got my deployment. I got my stage. Those three resources, I got them spelled out here. So is this good enough? Maybe. Maybe for you, this is something that fits just fine and you're okay with this. Just getting it enough into CDK code is good. And there's some good arguments for that. You've probably already got pipelines set up. You've already got a lot of infrastructure and tooling and other things, and you're familiar with the CDK process. So this at least gets you to the point where this code is in the CDK. Now, again, they're not L2 constructs. So can we get there? Well, let's take a look at what that might look like. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go over and I'm going to create a test or go into the test that was already created. we're going to go ahead and replace this with a snapshot test. Snapshot tests at this point are really simple. I'll go ahead and run this. This gets me my baseline to compare to. So I'm going to try now replacing these L1 constructs with L2 constructs. And the snapshot test will let me know, how close I am to getting it one-to-one matching. All right, so now that I got my snapshot into place, let's go ahead and go back and look and replace some code. So CFN REST API, that can just be replaced with a new REST API. We'll go ahead and call it image. And now let's see if we can fill out some of the same basic parameters. So it looks like Copilot's kind of filling out some of this stuff for me already. At least it's trying. It's not too bad. The description, yeah, that's not really all that useful. Deploy options, we'll come back to those. So let's see what else we got in here. We've got API key source type. So let's go ahead and set that up as a header. I don't like using these namespaces on these guys, so let's get rid of that. All right, we've got no tags. We got disable execute API endpoint. Yeah, we'll leave that, set that explicitly to false. About endpoint configuration, we'll do types. And it looks like we've got regional. Okay. So we got that covered, we got that covered, that, and that. Okay, so cool. Let's go ahead now and we'll just comment this out. Retain policy. Let's go ahead and add that in here too. So REST API dot apply removal retain. Okay. So let's go ahead and just comment this stuff out. And let's go back now to our test and let's run this and see what's different. Just with this very simple step, is there anything that really changed? Well, yeah, right away, tests don't run. So let's go back. You know what? Let's go ahead and come out the rest of this stuff too, because the REST API is an L2 that probably already covers deployment, already covers a stage. So let's just see again how close we are just by doing this one simple step. All right. First off, the REST API doesn't contain any methods. Okay, so I don't have any methods defined in my existing template, and this L2 constructor is requiring me to define one. So immediately I'm running into a bit of an issue here. If I just go ahead and I start adding in these methods, now I've got a case where I've got this method that's defined in code, but I still actually already have that resource out there as well. So I could maybe put in a dummy method just to satisfy this thing, but that's not really a great answer either. So I'm just going to go ahead and pretend like this is going to be my options-based call. So I've got CORS authentication on this. We'll just go ahead and add that in. So API.add method, and we'll say options, and we'll do a new mock integration for now. And if we let this, when I was working on this the other day, it actually let me do that's a bummer. We'll leave this off for now. All right. Run our test again. Okay. Now things are off. Let's take a look at how bad they are. So looking through this, first off, the L2 is adding an output that I didn't have before. It's probably okay. Adding outputs, pretty harmless operation. So the fact that it's doing this isn't going to really hurt anything. So that's okay. Looks like here, resources, looks like it's trying to remove out the deployment here, and the REST API looks like it just sort of changed from this being the logical ID to that. Well, I don't want to change logical IDs. There's a couple of different ways that I can fix this up. The first one is I can just explicitly override the ID. And this is a fairly common escape hatch here. So what I do is I come down here and I say the REST API node default child as a CFN resource, override. Maybe if I spelled resource right. Yep. Why are we having so many problems with our code here? There we go. Override logical ID. I'm going to go ahead and put that in there. And let's go back and rerun our test. See how close we are now. Okay, so a little bit better. Again, we see the replacement or the removal here, the deployment. When we scroll down, we'll probably see it added back in. But the API gateway REST is pretty close. The only thing is we're adding in an update replace policy that wasn't there before, but our deletion policy and our properties are all the same. Okay, so that's pretty good, not bad. Looking here, we've got the image account. This is a API gateway account. Again, not previously in our stack, but because the L2 is putting it in, well, now we got it. We've also got a CloudWatch role that wasn't there before, so we got that. Looks like we've got here our deployment. Okay, so we've got this deployment in here that was automatically created by it, but we don't want to replace necessarily the deployment we had before. Well, this one is actually okay. We could replace it. Deployments are going to say, go, please update the code. Please go redo this thing. Probably not a horrible thing to keep in there. If we did want to keep the logical ID the same, we'd just do another override, but I'll skip that for now. We've got a stage in here. Looks like we have got a new stage defined for prod, tracing enabled as false. And then finally down here, we have our mock integration that wasn't in here before. Okay, so what does this all mean? It means that it's very, very difficult in practice, not just from a automation standpoint. Could the CD Migrate generate L2s? Probably not. Can we replace L1s with L2s? No, probably not. This is always going to be a struggle with when you have higher abstractions and they go to lower concrete items. Um, Going from those concrete items, and especially limited set here, like what's available to us with the REST API, the deployment, the stage, trying to go to a higher abstraction, that L2, it's adding in a bunch of things, it's changing something ways some things work. And while all of these may be acceptable, there are some cases where you're going to find some unacceptable things, some stuff that isn't going to work. For example, let's say I've got a VPC. VPCs are very often created by hand. I've come across many accounts and many clients of ours where a VPC was created at some point by hand. You can't easily replace or redo a VPC. So getting those things, at least the first step into a CloudFormation template is great. Putting them under IaC is a great thing. But then going and trying to take all of those L1 CFN resources and replace it with the out of the box L2 VPC is going to be very problematic. That by the time you tweak it and modify it and do all the escape hatches necessary to make it work, it's not really probably worth the effort. You're probably going to fight the thing more than it's worth. Okay, so does this mean you shouldn't do it? You can try. You can absolutely try to go ahead and turn these L1s into L2s or even into L3s. But once you start running up against these issues, you need to ask yourself, where's the value in this? Because I could easily spend another 2 or 3 hours just trying to make something as simple as this very limited API gateway definition work into an L2. Other places where you're going to want to do this, probably RDS databases, very common, especially if you've got things like a database that was restored from a snapshot done manually during like a DR event that you've never really backfilled into CloudFormation code, things like that. Very, very valuable, but don't get hung up on the fact that this generates L1s. That's not that big of a deal. The important thing is that it's in your CDK code. So take that effort, take that time. Now, The CDK Migrate functionality, there's a couple other options in there. If we take a look real quick at the help on this, there are a couple of different ways you can actually do the import process or the migrate functionality. You can pull it in from a path. So if you have a CloudFormation template locally, you can use from path to do it. You can pull it in from a stack like I did. I particularly like that one. And then you can also do this from scan options. So this one is really interesting. This was the one that was just released. So determines if a new scan should be created or the last successful scan should be used. Options are new or most recent. So you can do those things. And then there's this filter that you apply for which resources you want to bring in. Um, Good luck on this filter. I will probably never use this. I've got a good feeling that by the time you work out this filter, doing that through a CLI, kind of rough. Um, I would just rather go in the UI like I showed you, pick the things out there. The UI needs some help too. The UI has very limited filtering. It'd be nice if you could filter by tags, if you could filter by partial names, which I think you can, by types and things. It's still a very early UI for the CloudFormation side. But anyway, that's it. That's kind of the things I wanted to cover here. How the new IaC generator works, walk you through it, how it works with the CDK, how these things matter with that. Yeah, hopefully you got some value out of this. If you liked it, please go ahead and give me a thumbs up on the video. If you want to see more content like this, my plans for 2024 is to create a lot more content like this. Subscribe to my channel. That will give me a good indication if people actually want this sort of thing. Um, Thank you for watching, and until next time. Oh, and by the way, if you want to get more information like this, I do have an advanced CDK course that is available. You can find the link in the description below. Thanks.